The topics I'm going to cover today, I think is very exciting. I don't know if all of you feel that way. I'm going to talk about how to create competency model. And what I want to talk about first, I want to define what competency model is, why you, all of us, organization, your clients, need to build a competency model. And I also want to go into not just talking about theories, that how, practically, how can you build that competency model? And most importantly, what I want to do is that I want to connect the dots for you. That why am I covering these topics? How it connects back to the new service, learning management service that we are going to be providing in Netcom Learning. How it connects back to your title, because we are calling you learning consultant. And I also want to connect this information back to a slide that I covered with you last week during the e-learning session called HR life cycle. So I want to connect it back to that so that you find this event relevant. I want to share a story with you. It's almost 16, 17 years ago. One of my mentors from IBM sent me to a conference where a lot of learning leaders were attending the conference. He thought it's an event I should attend because I started technology training organization. So when I went to the event, it was in Manhattan in a hotel room, and in the middle of the event, they also had lunch parties. So they put me in a table with 6, 7 other learning leaders, and during the lunch conversation, they were talking about all these different terms relates to how to operate a learning department. And I have to tell you what happened during that time. During that time, I was so nervous because the type of the topics they were talking, I really didn't have a foolish level of understanding what they're talking about. Second thing is that, have you ever been to a dinner or a lunch party where you're thinking when they're going to ask you the question that you don't know? So the entire time I'm thinking about, because I'm young and stupid, I was thinking about, instead of listening to them, I'm thinking about when they're going to ask me a topic that I don't know, and how am I going to answer those questions. So it was a very, very painful experience for me. And that time I realized that I really want to learn about learning. I really want to learn how big organizations, Fortune 1000 companies, actually learning their learning department. I really want to learn about that, so the next time when I'm attending an event like that, I don't have that fear. But hindsight is 2020. Now that I go back and think about what happened during that time, I realized that 17, 18 years ago, I really, truly didn't understand the difference between how to provide right running solution to corporate clients versus individual clients, even though I thought I knew. I didn't really realize, even within the corporate client, how you communicate information with the learners who's taking the class or decision makers who's making the decision versus learning directors or VP of learning or CLOs, what go through their mind, what was keeping them alive. I really didn't understand it, even though I thought I knew. So today, I want to talk about just one small item within some of this talk happens with the VP of learning and CLOs. What they talk about, competency model is one of the things they talk about. How many of you heard about competency model? Can you raise your hand, please? Yes, so it looks like some of you already know about them. And you already intuitively, all of you know about this, anyway. So I want to define you what is competency model. What is it? So before I talk about what competency model, I want to first talk about what's wrong with the competency model. Over the years, I have dissected most of the books about competency models. And when I read those books, I found it extremely complex. It's not something that we can comprehend. And most of them are not applicable within the corporate environment. Most of them are written by either college professors or some of the learning geeks. They know the stuff. But some people confuse complexity with intelligence. So some of the books you're going to find out is very, very complex. So competency model, the way it's been designed and it's been used by ASTD and others, I found it extremely complex. You might find it easy, but I found it complex. So my goal today is to dumb it down a little bit. Make it so easy for you that you'll be like, oh, I knew this already. What is Russell covering was there to learn. Because that's my goal, that at the end I want it to feel like competency model is nothing but so easy to build. So before I also go, what is competency model? I also want to talk about that competency model has been there for half century. Companies were using competency model to build the performance, measure the performance of their employees, and also improve the effectiveness of their employees. So it's been there for a long period of time, and I wanted to find out who really invented it. And I couldn't find out who really invented it, who really came up with the name. There's many people are claiming that they came up with the name, but Harvard professor, there's a psychologist, David McClelland, he's the one who actually popularized it in the corporate sector. So sometimes you'll see that when you're talking about the learning directors, they actually know about this guy. They know about the whole story. So you need to be able to connect with these people. So now let's talk about what is competency model. I'll just define it for you, very simplest terms. Competency model identifies the skill, knowledge, and attributes needed to perform a job to the fullest level. Simple enough? If a great competency model will really answer 3 questions, I want to simplify it for you. It will ask, what are the core competency the individual or the team or the department needs in order to do their job effectively? What skills, knowledge, and attributes they need? What are the job-related skills, knowledge, and attributes the employees need in order to do their job effectively? What are the company-related skills, knowledge, and attributes individuals need in order to do the job effectively? So if you ask 3 questions, one is what core skills, knowledge they need or attribute, what job-related skills, attributes, and knowledge they need, and what company-related skills, knowledge, and attribute they need. If you can answer that question, you have the competency model. So I want you to think about that competency model has actually 3 different types: core, job-related competency, company-related. Core, job-related, company-related. So within each area, you're going to think about what skills, knowledge, and attributes needed in order to build the competency model. Now, one of the things I want to go with you is that define what's knowledge, skills, and attributes. The person who actually came up with this model, even though it looks like it's been there, this model, his name is Dr. Benjamin Bloom. He was a professor of University of Chicago, and with the colleagues, they came up with this 3 terms. And this is how they defined it. Knowledge is a cognitive domain referred to intellectual activities such as acquiring, analyzing, evaluating, and applying information and concept. But when it comes to skills, they call it psychomotor domain, refers to manual or physical skills that require practice to attain. So what are the physical or manual skills you need to do in order to do your job? And attributes refer to values, feelings, emotions, and behaviors. Do you see the difference? Skills. Learn how to build a website. Learn how to develop application. Knowledge, we talked about other day, is that here is the 7 major technology trends. So you're doing trend analysis. That's knowledge. Attributes. You have emotional intelligence. You do objective thinking. You put yourself on the other person's shoe. That's attributes. Do you see the difference? So every organization needs to define that within core, within the job-related, and within the company-related skills, what attributes, knowledge, and skills the person needs to have to do their job to the fullest level. That's what they need. Now, one of the problems I see out there about the books, about the topics that are written by authors or framework built by companies that actually provide competency model creation service, they don't follow Dr. Benjamin Bloom's definition. I see there's a mixing going on. And sometimes it is true that you can really differentiate attributes from skills or skills from knowledge. So I'll give you an example that how it can become. Pay attention while other people are talking. What skills is that? Listening. Is this a skill or is this an attribute? It could be both. Both are right. So what happens is that when you are defining competency model, that's lack of clarity about which category a specific domains fall under, creating a lot of confusion within the corporate environment and creating a lot of confusion within the box. So I have a solution for that. That why don't we just ask questions, what knowledge, what skills, what attributes you need to do your job to the fullest level, but create an uncategorized list. Don't categorize them. We can just create non-categorized domain list people need to learn. So now I want to build a case why competency model is needed, why it's important. So I will give you 7 reasons why it's important, and I'll run through it. If you want to attract right talent within the organization, you need to build a competency model. Because if you don't know what company-specific attribute, knowledge, and skills you need, you won't be able to come up with the right job description, and you won't be able to select the right people. So selecting the right talent, recruiting the right talent cannot be achieved without having a competency model. In order to understand the skill gap of your team members within the organization because of the changes that's happening, you need a competency model. So think about that fact that we are learning the managed learning service. How we sold training, technology training, business training is different than how we manage learning for the organization. So there is a major skill gap problem exists in NetCom learning. This session is trying to minimize that problem by a small percentage. But we have to run major learning and training session in order to close the skill gap. But you need a competency model in order to do that. You need to create a learning plan. So learning plan has 4 key components: learning goals, competency model, different type of learning method, and learning assessment. So competency model is one of the component of the learning plan. If you want to build a performance PRD, we call it performance result description. Don't confuse performance result description with the competencies or competency model. You use the competency model as a guideline to build a performance standard. Don't build a performance standard before you build a competency model. So competency model give you that guidance on how to build a performance model. If you want to build a productive employee force, you need a competency model. If you want to deal with the changes that are happening in the marketplace, you need competency model. And if you want to connect people with the purpose of the organization, mission of the organization, you need a competency model, because competency model has 3 different areas. What are those 3 areas? Core, job-related areas, and company-related area. Competency model is so important. It's the fundamental of making an organization productive. 4 forces is forcing organization to build, I'll tie it back to the competency model, build dynamic competency model. And those forces are, I'm not going to go deep, I can spend a couple of hours here. You guys remember 4 forces. One of the forces we talked about, technology is consistently changing. Because of the technology, globalization is becoming huge, which is forcing the companies to change their business model. Therefore, the job title is changing. So if you really think about, we talked about social, mobile, cloud, big data, Internet of Things, how it's changing the entire world, and that affects competency model. Because of that, there's increased amount of computation. People are able to connect with each other. We have access to the higher capital. There's a huge amount of power shift is happening within the organization. People live longer. And how that fall into the competency model, we have to really connect those dots. You see the business model changing, where to compete and how to compete because of the technology. Business needs to consistently change. They need to innovate. They are facing tremendous amount of competition from outside. It's an opportunity and it's also a threat. Look at the opportunity. Now you have access to broader talent pool. But look at the threat. Your current talent pool is obsolete, or 50% of the things they know, they need to undo those knowledge. So therefore, job role is changing, and each of the job role, people really need to learn what to learn, how to learn, speed of learning, and they need to become a lifelong learner. And that goes back to the competency model. Because competency model is that provide the guidance for everybody that what skills, knowledge, attribute you need to have to do your job to the fullest level, and I wanted to understand that how four forces actually creating change within the organization and how change is forces all of us to build dynamic competency model. So your competency model, that guidance that I gave, especially to the sales team from this book, it doesn't work anymore. 80% of the things work. It needs to change consistently. So now we talked about what is competency model, why there's a need for a dynamic competency model. Now we're going to talk about how we're going to build a competency model. Now before I talk about it, I want to read this code. I love this code. It says that do not reinvent the wheel. Use a research-based competency model library as foundation. Korn Ferry is one of the largest, it's actually the largest executive search firm. So one of the services they provide is creating competency model for organization. And the revenue of millions of dollars revenue they're generating out of this service. So I want to talk about how you're going to build it. So how you're going to build it, if we're going to really talk about it, I don't want to reinvent the wheel. But earlier I also talked about most competency model, the books and the theories there is so confusing, so complex, so devilishly unproductive that it's not really usable. But there's certain model out there, this usable model, and I actually put a lot of time, research, because this is one of the chapters from my book. I did many research for you, and I'm giving you a consolidated version of the research. So to build a competency model, how? We have to go back to the original definition. Competency model consists of core, job, and company related skills, knowledge, and attributes. So first I want to build a core competency model. Two big framework out there, famous framework out there. There's hundreds of famous framework. Do you guys want to find that out? A lot of work went in. One of the framework I'm going to cover with you right now, it came from this book called 21st Century Skill. And I want to tell you about Partnering for 21st Century Skills. It's a non-profit organization. It was founded in 2002 by the government and the private sector. The government, education sector, and private sector combined together build this organization. And I'll tell you the organization that's part of the board are AOL, Apple, Cisco, Dell, Microsoft, SAP. These are the companies that are sitting on the board, and they're trying to build competency model, core competency model for future. Because they saw that what's happening with the technological changes, how globalization is impacting the world, how you communicate, what the skills that people need is changing consistently, and how K-12 education, colleges is not teaching people the skills they need to do their job effectively when they get a job. So they build competency model, and basically the model has core subjects, math, science, reading, writing, physics, all those things that you need to have. And what are the skills you need on learning and innovation skills? You need information media technology skill, and you have life and career skills. So it goes into 4 different areas of skills that everyone within every single organization need to have. But I want you to think about from the point of view that those core skills should be developed when you're in K-12 education or when you are going to college. It needs to be developed during that time. But our K-12 education system has problems in the United States. But even if it was good, technology changed tremendously. What you knew and what is being taught, some of them are relevant, and some of the information that needs to be taught is not being taught. So if you are a baby boomer or Generation Y or Generation X, you went through an education program, some of those skills is not being taught to you. So let's talk about the 7 key skills they talked about. And I color-coded it for you so you can. So one of the things they talk about career skills, what competency domain you need, how to learn on your own, career and learning self-reliance, how you become a self-learner. It says skills that you need to develop. How do you have a cross-cultural understanding? Because of the globalization, you might have to work with people in India, in China, in Brazil. How do you actually deal with the cross-cultural knowledge? And then it goes into the learning and innovation. And these are the key skills. It's not been taught enough in K-12 education. Critical thinking, problem solving, creativity, collaboration, communication. These are the core skills a person needs to develop in order to do their job effectively. So this organization is trying to map curriculum back to this competency model to train the K-12 student so that by the time they come to college, they have those skills. Now, other skills is becoming important, tied back to the computing and literacy because of what's happening with all this digital technology that we are using, the social media, and last time we talked about it, you can do even 3D printing. You can print a kidney. You have Internet of Things. Everything is connected with the Internet. How do we deal with those new knowledge? So those skills need to be developed, but on the core, reading, writing, math, physics, we are assuming that people already have those skills. So if an organization is trying to build a core competency, they have to make sure everybody within the organization have those skills. Just because you have some of the skills when you went to college doesn't mean it stops. You can refine those skills. So you see that organization, you should think about this. Now I'll go over a second model, and I'll tell you a little bit about this company. Have you heard of an Institute for Future? It's a nonprofit organization. It's been there for 45 years. And they do research on what are the skills the individuals or corporation needs to develop for their employees in order to compete into the future. Because we don't even know what the criteria of the job 10 years from now, 20 years from now. We don't know. Some of the jobs are going to be created. You don't know what they are. So they do those predictions, and they also look into what's happening, the trend, and how can you build a competency model. As a matter of fact, I saw the University of Phoenix is actually funding some of this research. So if you're interested, I'll send you this document, Future Work Skills 2020. So what are the skills that all of your clients need to have? Because if you're going and have a discussion, you need to be able to tell them, don't worry about the skills that you have now. You have to constantly build. You also have to think about the skills you need to have 10 years from now. You have to have that conversation with the CLOs, CIOs, who is actually building the competency model, building the learning plan of their employees. You need to know that. You need to have skills of sense-making, social intelligence, adaptive thinking, cross-cultural competency, computational thinking, new media literacy, design mindset, transdisciplinary, how to actually think about the things from different contexts, design thinking and engineering thinking, how do you actually combine them together, cognitive load management, where all this information that you're getting outside, which information to selectively dump, which information to process. Because every day we are creating enough information than what information existed from the beginning of the time to, I believe, 2010 or 2012. So how do you do information load balancing? And one of the things shows up here, virtual collaboration, that virtual collaboration we're doing with the team. Because work environment is changing. But do you guys see something interesting here? If you go back and look into the model here, what they talked about, and if you come back and look into the model here, is 90% same. They're just using two different language. They're just using the same definition, but tagging the terms differently. So here, cross-cultural competency. What falls under cross-cultural competency here? It's the same thing. So it's good. I was really happy because I thought that this two model is going to confuse the hell out of us. Because right now, by analyzing two popular models, what I found out that it's a good news for us that all of these thought leaders, all of the researchers, all the professors, all the public sector people, private sector people, all draw the same conclusion. What are the core skills? Everybody in that company needs to have. Everybody, every employee within every single company that you have need to have. It's already been determined. So if it's already been determined, those boxes need to go into the organization competency model, and you need to tie it back with every single employee's competency model. Some will have it built already because they went through an MBA program, or they went to a good school, or they have parents who taught them those. So you need to really find out who within the organization have those skills and who doesn't. And it's a very difficult job to achieve. Imagine a company with 3,000 employees. And we are saying that those 3,000 employees should have this core competency model if they are knowledge workers. Imagine the challenge that you have to face, that how do you figure out who has what skills, and how do you build a customized competency model for that person. These are the type of challenges organizations are facing when they're building competency model. I love this quote written by Alvin Toffler. I read a lot of his stuff in the past. He's a futurist and journalist. This is what he says. Eric, can you read it for me?
The illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn.
You have to relearn the new things. Very powerful statement. And that ties back to the core competency. Competencies of the future that we have to help organizations to develop. I see a lot of training opportunity. Do you see it? I see it. Now we went over core. Now next thing is, okay, you need to know how to read. You need to know how to write. You need to know how to process all this information. You need to do critical thinking. A problem happens. A class fell. There's a defective product we created. We need to fix it. You need to do problem-solving skill. But you also have job-related skills you need to think of. That's not the core. That's the job-related skills. So if you're a marketer, you need to learn how to generate lead. If you're a salesperson, you need to learn how to close deals, how to sell. If you are a developer, you need to know how to build application. But if Brian knew how to build application using computers, now he need to learn how to build application on a mobile device. If he learned how to do it on PHP, now he need to learn how to build an application with .NET. So we need to build a job-related competency model. So in order to teach you the job-related competency model, I decided that let me analyze NetCom for you. So if a company wants to build job-related competency model, they need to think about first, what are the different departments that I have? So in NetCom, we have leadership department, marketing, sales, operation, technology, trainers, finance. All of them need core competency, right? We talked about. They all need to be a critical thinker. They all need to learn about cross-cultural things that goes in terms of communicating with the others. They all need to learn about this virtual communication and collaboration that we are doing. But does everybody need to know how to develop an application? Who needs to know that? Somebody in marketing department, marketing and innovation, we group them together. Does marketing department need to know how to effectively close a deal? Not really. Everybody needs different skills. So one of the best way of building a competency model, first think about all the generic departments that you have and come up with a generic competency model. And then from there, you can think about that now that I build a generic competency model for sales team, I might have a telemarketer, I might have an inside salesperson, I might have an outside salesperson, I might have a business developer. Does everybody need the same skills or different skills? So they might have certain skills they all need, but an outside salesperson needs different skills than the inside salesperson. So you can go deep into the sales and then build a competency model around a specific job title. Now you also have to think about if you have a salesperson that's working out of the US and another salesperson is working out of China, competency model might be 10 or 15% different because you have to deal with some cultural situation. You have to understand how that market works. You have to understand how company operates. You need to understand the rules and regulation of the country. So you need to build a different types of competency model. But NetCom is a small company. It's not complex enough. The company that has 300,000, 400,000 employees, they might have multiple departments within the departments. So now they have to build a competency model for those. That's why billions of dollar industry is getting created and all these people are being employed within the learning department. So let's run through example of sales. If you're building competency model, what are the 3 questions I have to ask? What is skills, knowledge, and attributes that I need to have? And I also said that build core competencies, job-related competency, company competencies. Core applies to everybody. Now I'm on the job-related. So salesperson needs to know about product, about customer, about technology, need to know how to analyze the industry. Remember, we are technology industry, learning industry. They need to learn how to research. They need to know how to do account profit maximization. They need to have an expert on sales process, prospecting, need identification. These are all of the learning domains of the competency model. So a couple of weeks ago when I talked about top 10, top 7 technology trend, where does it fall in? Which box I was teaching you? It could be technology, it could be also industry. I was doing the industry analysis. When I did e-learning, what did I do? I did industry analysis. So today you have a moneymaker model. What are you teaching? Where does moneymaker model will fall into here? Customer or sales process. Every organization, our sales process is a moneymaker model. Right. We also, right now we redefined it, we're calling it purpose-driven selling method. Now I know that Diana is going to be teaching what? Where does it fall in?
Time management.
Oh, I see a box there. Time management. Do you see how you build a competency model? So you could actually build 8 hours class, 20 hours class, 30 hours class on each of the area, but you don't know what skills you need to build unless you first build a competency model. Now let me give you an example about technology competency model. It goes back to the technology category that we went in. So if you're working on a technology, you might be working with big data, cloud, security, publishing, database, networking, multimedia, design, any of those areas. So I might have a job. Where would Brian fall into here? What do I have to teach him? Programming, more programming. What else I need to teach him? A little bit of database. What else I need to teach him? Development. I might have to teach him cloud. So where does Ben fall into? Networking. What else? You need to secure. Now I can go inside the networking. So networking, I need operating system. I need A+ network plus. I need virtualization. I need Linux. I need Unix. I need all this. So you see that this is a competency model on the top level. Now you could actually go and customize and go deep into those competency model. How competency model build up. So when you go and talking to the C-level people, they are going to talk here. As you go down, because they have 300, 500 people are going in and actually building the model. And some of the organizations right now are using a 70-to-1 rule, 60-to-1 rule. For every 60 employees, there is one learning manager. For every 70 employees, there is one learning manager, because you have to build a competency model. Based on that, you have to do the testing to see who has what skills. You have to use the software to see what stage of the learning they are in. It is a complex process, but I'm talking about how to build the technology competency model. So that's the discussion you're going to have, not discussion about A+, discussion about what competencies the team need to have in order to do their job effectively. Now let's talk about leadership. What skills Mudit needs to have, what skill I need to have, what Eric needs to develop. You need to develop how to do self-mastery. You need to be authentic. You need to learn about strategy, execution, talent management, talent development. You need to know the industry that you are in. You need to know the education industry, technology industry inside out. Otherwise, you cannot effectively lead the organization. Now, here's the thing, and I intentionally put something here. And that's how the debate happens. Is communication is a core competency, or is it a job-related competency? Is listening a core competency, or is a job-related competency? Both. But if you're going to go and build a competency model where you put the communication, if you put the communication into your core, it's not going to show up onto your job-related, because you already covered through the core. It's not really so ultimately what you really need to learn the connections, because we're just showing you the information. Different company might put that bucket into different place. And when companies build the model, they're not building it alone. They're building with expert and with their managers. So do you understand? Now let's look into, you saw the leadership. So do you understand right now how you can build job-related competency model? Now let's go back. This is the most important part. It's the company-related competency model. Every single company, they have their purpose, what they want to become. They have their mission, what are the goals they have, what strategies they want to apply, what policies they have, what system they have, what processes they have, what they have learned over the years from the organization. They want to apply those learning and communicate this learning back to the employees. So organizations have knowledge over the years. They need to communicate those knowledge. So if you think about from Netcom context, if employees come in, we want them to understand the importance of promoting learning, because we want to do every marketing. Sales needs to be purpose-driven selling, purpose-driven marketing. We have to teach people about our values, how to build a learning culture, how to build a customer-driven culture, how to build an innovation culture. So imagine this, if we have that on the competency model during the hiring process, we have to find the people who demonstrate those values. So sometimes what you're going to find out that a company-specific competency model, so Netcom as a competency model is innovation, but innovation also could be a core skill somebody needs to have. So you have to look into, this is why I'm a big believer of building a non-categorized competency model. So this way you're dealing with the unique learning domains. And that's what I'm actually making argument on my chapter 5 of my book, that build a non-categorized competency model, because it's going to remove a lot of the complexity. But sometimes we also have to understand and be comfortable with the complexity, because sometimes complexity is needed. So here's the summary of the competency model. So I go through. Company has 3 types of competencies. Core, they can combine these 2 framework out there. So you guys have to learn that. Then they need job-related skills. So you can see how skills fall into different category. Company-related skills is same for all employees within the organization. So when you look at the core and company, everybody should have those skills. But only job is where skills might vary by position, by job titles. I want to read this quote by former Secretary of Education of President Clinton. Greg, can you read it for me?
We're currently preparing students for jobs that don't yet exist, using technologies that haven't yet invented in order to solve problems we don't even know are problems yet.
You might think we are wasting all this time, and everybody will be like, we know that we need to sharpen the skill. We know that a lot of changes is happening because of the technology. And the beauty is we teach technology, we teach business, and now we manage learning. Is the beauty. We are lucky that we are part of a century where all the changes are happening, and we are actually contributing to develop people's skills. And key over here is that we don't know what skills are needed. So our business is going to be always there. What a beautiful business to be in. Now I'm going to connect the dots for you, that why I spend so much time talking about competency model. This is a favorite topic for a lot of learning geeks. You know, they love this. I'll connect the dots. The other day I talked about that when you go and walk into your organization, I want you to understand how organization HR life cycle works. They go and hire people, recruiting service. Now they need to think about staffing levers. They need to do employee record management, payroll service, health benefit, wealth benefit, succession planning, learning and development. The CLOs, CHROs, they are thinking about consistently that I have 100,000 employees, 500,000 employees into different countries, different locations. How do I make sure they have the right skills? How do I make sure they're able to develop the new skills needed in order to do their job effectively so that they can become productive? How do I make sure who stays and who goes? How do I make sure who gets promoted and who doesn't get promoted? They're thinking about those. They're thinking about competency model, and they're hiring companies like IBM or Carey, the Corn and Carey, those companies to build a competency model. But we need to understand that we are in the business of learning, because we said the definition of Netcom learning was before we teach technology, we teach business. Now we are saying that we manage learning. When you manage learning, you teach technology, you teach business, but you do more. You build competency model. It's just one of the services that we are going to do. So do you see the connection where it fits in with the titles? And when I was having meetings, these are the type of the people. Actually, not everybody was CLO. There were some VP of learning. There's learning directors. And then I'm talking about 17 years ago when I had that crazy experience where I was thinking what they're going to ask me and couldn't understand what was happening. Information was going over my head. I felt embarrassed. And I know that you're not going to feel embarrassed because you know right now the basic knowledge. I want to make the connections back to the services that we are offering. We say that we have 5 buckets of service: delivery, content, technology, operation, consulting. Or private class falls here, public class falls here. Now look at where competency model falls in. Where does it fall in? Consulting service. We said we're going to do learning program development, learning strategy development, need analysis, which is skill gap analysis, Competency model development. It's all interconnected. I cannot do skill gap analysis unless I have competency model. I need to work on both of them. I cannot develop a effective learning program because learning program is driven from competency model. What competency model I want to develop? So we probably have to build one of the competency model. It's about virtual collaboration. Because I see that right now our virtual team is actually doing better than before. Remember, we couldn't get one person to log in before. We couldn't have anybody to talk. Now everybody wants to talk. It's a good problem to have, but now we are fixing that problem. So do you see where it falls into within the service? That's the service that we are going to offer. It's not going to be free. This is looking at this box, billion-dollar industry. Billion-dollar industry you're looking at here. I want to make the connection back to the website. When you go to the website, first page shows up, Managed Learning Solution. Where would that fall into? Managed Learning Consulting. Learning Consulting. You see? If you go and look into our future catalog, you're going to find information about this type of services that we're going to provide. Now, how you are going to go and provide a solution to CLO or learning directors if you cannot use their lingo, if you don't understand their lingo, if you really don't understand how the organization works, so we have to learn together. We need to sharpen our skills together. Of course, we're going to introduce some key people within the organization who understand that effectively. And I'm going to also come up with a book that I'm publishing. I'm going to come up with a certification program called Certified Learning Consultant. It's not going to be just about Netcom learning. It's any organization, any HR department. If people want to learn about how to build a learning organization, how to build a learning plan, I want to make sure they have those skills. So if we can, that's one of the plans that we have. I want to make the connection back. The book that I've been working on for the last 2 to 3 years that's going to be published at the end of the year has the framework, how to build a learning organization, learning culture, learning plan, learning operation. So to build a learning plan, you need learning goals, competency model, learning method, learning assessment. Here is the competency model. And another reason I'm actually pitching this, so all of you order the book. When the book comes in, I want to make it a bestseller and your customers are buying it. But ultimately, the reason we are going to be launching the book, because this is going to be the tool and the foundation to sell different type of services that we have. This is going to be the tool and the foundation to teach corporation how to build a competency model. We're going to also have a workbook where if you want to build a competency model for your sales team, within the sales team for your telemarketer team versus inside team, we'll provide you those guidance. Now I want you to tie it back to your titles. Before we had learning consultant, senior learning consultant, enterprise learning consultant. We said enterprise learning engineer. Enterprise learning engineer has to understand how to build a learning organization, how to build a learning culture, how to build a learning plan, how to manage a learning operation. They need to be effective. They're the one who is going to go and have that discussion with C-level people and learning director. So you won't be able to get to that level until you demonstrate that you are developing those skills, and we all going to learn together. So do you see the connection? So I made 4 connections here. Connection back to the HR process. Connection back to the service that we are providing. Connection back to the website and the catalog. Connection back to the entire learning framework. Connection back to your title. So let's summarize what we just talked about. What is competency model? Competency model identifies the skills, knowledge, and attributes needed to perform the job to the fullest level. I said top 7 reasons why we need to build a competency model. What are those? Talent, skill gap, learning plan, performance and productivity, change, purpose. All right. In order to build a learning competency model, we need to ask 3 key questions. What are those 3 key questions? What core skills, knowledge, and attributes should be developed by everyone in the organization? Question number 1. Question number 2, what skills, knowledge, attributes are tied to specific jobs? Question number 3, what skills, knowledge, and attributes should be developed by everybody within the company that's company related? So do you see the 3 questions? And I made 4. I made some connections. What are the connections I made? Connection to the website and the catalog. Connection to our new service. Connection to the learning framework. And connection to your title. That what is the new titles are coming in the organization. I want to end my meeting with one final thought. And I was thinking about it. about over the weekend. What is life? It seems like a silly question. It seems like a too broad philosophical question. This is the conclusion I came up with. When you're born, learning begins. The first 25 years, you're going to college, you're going to school, you're going to K-12 education. You're learning basically without applying. Then you go back to the job market. And right now, almost every Fortune 500 company, they have their corporate university. They're thinking about how to develop their people. But when you are in a corporation, when you're here, when you're learning and applying. So what do we learn today? If you're sales, you're going to go back and talk to those people and talk about the competency model. If you're marketing, you're communicating this service. If you're in an operation now, you have to think about how do I build resources who can actually build customized competency model. But you're learning and you're applying, learning and applying. And what is life? You die and learning stops. The moment we think we know it all, we stop growing. Develop the passion for learning, be a lifelong learner. Thank you, guys.